Lord Paul, as he finishes the end of his journey in Philippians, he writes, God, I want to know you more. I want to know you more. He says, God, this morning, we want to know you more. And God, when we know you more, you make changes in our lives. Changes that are good, changes that are appropriate for the kingdom, oh God. And I pray this morning, oh God, that you would change our hearts so much. That we would go from this place as people changed, not the same way we came in, oh God. And that's our prayer this morning, that you would change us from inside out. I thank you for doing that, oh God. I really want to thank you for doing that. I really want to lift our eyes before you, oh God. We will witness this baptism and we will hear your voice that was heard on your baptism, that I am, each one of us in this place is your child and you are very well pleased with us. That great God be called this morning.
Today's Old Testament lesson is Genesis 28 from 10 to 19. Genesis chapter 28, 10 to 19. Jacob's dream at Bethel. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven. And these angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. And he called that place Bethel. But the name of the city was Luz at the first. He runs the word of God.
Thanks be to God.
Second lesson is taken from Romans chapter 8 verses 12 to 25. Romans chapter 8 verses 12 to 25. So then, brothers and sisters, we are debtors not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received a spirit of adoption. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is that very Spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs of God, and joint heir with Christ. If, in fact, we suffer with Him, so that we may also be glorified with Him. I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Here ends the word of God.
Thanks. If you have your Bibles, open with me to Genesis 28, beginning from verse 10. That's the one that Ani Sushila read for us, and I want to read it back again, and then I want to go through that passage with you. Chapter 28, beginning from verse 10. Maybe your version is slightly different from what I have, because I'm reading from a slightly different version. So, verse 10, it says, Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go. And I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke up from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? There is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stones and he put them under his head, and set it on a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Pray with me. God, I thank you for the opportunity to worship you this morning. And thank you for the opportunity to read your word again. Lord, even as I share your word, oh God, may it come alive for us. For it is your word that I preach. And it's a double-edged sword, oh God. Bless the rest of our time as we meditate on this word. In Jesus' name we pray. Jacob was an interesting character, isn't it? Probably the most fascinating character. Last week, I think Vinod talked about Rebecca. Is that right? And he kind of alluded to the idea that even Rebecca, who we thought did all the wrong things, was still purposed by God. God fulfilled God's purpose through Rebecca. And so that's the story where it ends, and they pray for her. If you read chapters 24, 25 of Genesis, Rebecca is barren, and so Jacob prays for Rebecca to get pregnant, and she gets pregnant, and the babies are born. She has twins in her. Is that right? Now the first one is born and the second one is born, but before they are born, God tells them about a covenant that He makes with those two babies, and He says very clearly, He says that the second one will rule over the first one. And if you read, we get all kinds of meaning from the word Jacob, from the name Jacob. Jacob, some say, is a deceiver, and some say he's a supplanter. Is that right? But if you literally look at Jacob's name in Hebrew, it doesn't mean deceiver. He basically means he's a follower, the one who catches the heel and comes out. So he's not like a conniver. If you look at how Jacob comes out of the mother's womb, he holds the heel of Esau and he comes out. So, rightly so, they name him Jacob, because he's just a follower. He's not a supplanter, he's not a deceiver. But God makes a covenant with Abraham, is that right? God makes a covenant with Isaac. God makes a covenant later on with Isaac, and He says the younger one. And so you know the story. I'm not going to make this up. You know the story beautifully, is that right? The story basically is Esau sells his birthright to Jacob, right? And after he sells his birthright, Isaac is almost coming to his life's end. His eyes are dimming, it says. And so he wants to bless both of his children. And so he calls Esau, because that's his favorite one. And he says to Esau, go out and hunt for me and make a stew and feed me so that I will bless you. Rebecca overhears that. And so she calls Jacob, because Jacob is the favorite one for Rebecca. You know how we play favorites in our homes sometimes. And so when she overhears Jacob saying this, and he says to Jacob, what you do is, I will prepare this stew for you, and you go and get the blessings of your father. Now the reason why I say this is, Jacob is not like the believer that you and I think of. Because when he goes to get his blessings from Isaac, and Isaac looks at him and he says, didn't I give you the instruction to go? How come you have come so quickly? And you know what Jacob says? Jacob says, your God. It's not my God. Jacob says to Isaac, and he says, your God, whom you believe, has helped me this one. So Jacob is not this greatest believer. It's like an ordinary guy like you and I. And so Jacob gets his blessing from Isaac, and he is running for his life. And that's where we come to this text today. You can read this text either literally, or you can read this text figuratively. So I want to read that text figuratively with you. Will you try that with me? Just open your Bibles. I'm going to look at a few things. He says, Jacob left Beersheba and he went to Haran. Now if you look at it literally, it says Jacob went from one place to another place. Beersheba is the home of his father, a place that he was so familiar with. And he goes to a place called Haran. Haran is a place that he does not know. He goes to the home of his maternal father, like his grandfather. Is that right? So Haran is a place of uncertainty. Jacob is in this limbo space, is in that liminal space, a space that he's not familiar with, and he's going to a place that is totally will become a surprise. And so he comes to that place, and he's on his way, and he comes to that place and he stays that night. And then he says, and stayed that night because the sun had set. Now again, you can literally look at that, and he says the evening had come and the sun had set. And so Jacob took a break. But if you read it figuratively, it basically means his life was over. His life had come to a set. Because what he knew at his father's home and where he was going to is all over. Because he had cheated his older brother and he was running away. And he comes to a place and he tells himself, God, there is nothing I can go back to. And there is nothing I can go ahead of. I am in this place of uncertainty. Long time ago, I used to work for a church in South Philadelphia. And I worked among Cambodian kids. And I often asked them the question, where is home? And some of these Cambodian kids will look at me and he says, I don't have one. So I'll ask them, how come? Because he would say, Pastor, I left my country. It was war torn. I lived in a refugee camp for 2 years before they brought me to the US. For you and for me, you and I have a home to go back to. Is that right? We went for 3 weeks. And if you ask me where did I go, I will tell you exactly where I went. And if you ask me who was I with, I will exactly tell you who I was going to be with. Now this Cambodian kid had no home, nothing to go back to, nothing to go forward to. And when I see Jacob as a fugitive, not as an immigrant, but as a refugee moving from one place to the other, not knowing where he can go back to. In that way, you and I are so fortunate that we have a home to go back to, while there is nothing for Jacob to go back to. And so Jacob that day tells himself, God, my life has come to an end. And he says, the sun had set. And let's go back and says, the sun had set and he stayed for the night. And he dreamed and there was a ladder set up on the earth. Now you and I think of ladders coming up and down. That's not how it works. Now where he saw that was in the Mesopotamian culture, if you see, there is a ziggurat. Now ziggurat are places that are like steps that are reaching up to heaven. Now it's a place where humans meet God. And so he sits in that place and he dreams of a ladder that goes up and down. Now, this is the point that I wanted to make in this place. Now if you read that very carefully, God should have been on top of the ladder, isn't it? If the ladder is a ladder that goes from heaven to earth and an earth to heaven, where should God be? Now there are two translations to that text. The one translation basically says God was on top of the ladder and Jacob was at the bottom of the ladder. But look at your translation. I don't know what your translation says. It says, and the Lord stood beside him. Here was Jacob looking at the ladder and wanted to see God above. God reminds Jacob, I am with you. I am God Emmanuel. There is only one promise in Scripture that God tells, irrespective of everybody he calls to follow. When he calls Abraham, he says, I will be with you. When he calls Isaac, he says, I will be with you. When he calls Jacob, I will be with you. Calls Moses, I will be with you. I don't think God ever tells you and me that I will do something amazing in your life. That I will bless you. No, there's only one promise. And that's Emmanuel. God with us. And so let's go. And it says, and I will be with you. And the rest of the verses is the old Abrahamic covenant. The three parts of the covenant. I will give you a land. I will make you an heir. and you will be a blessing for many. Like Abraham, Jacob also comes to that place, and Jacob receives all the three, but he forgets oftentimes, like you and me, he forgets. It basically says that God will bless other nations through you and through me. And oftentimes we want all of the blessings of God and it stops with me, never to flow out to somebody else. And then in verse 16, it says, then Jacob woke from his sleep. I don't think Jacob woke from his sleep. I don't know if you read the prodigal son story. When he was taking care of the pigs, what does that word say? Do you remember what happens? And he came to his senses. That's what the writer of this scripture lesson says. It's not that Jacob woke from his sleep, but Jacob comes to his senses. Jacob realizes God's presence. And then after he realizes God's presence, he takes the stone on which he lays his head, puts it as a pillow, and then he lays it and he puts it as an altar and pours oil on it, and he blesses it. That's the end of the story, isn't it? Now, what do we do with this story in light of baptism? In light of what we will do for Satvik this morning? I think the writer of Genesis simply reminds us that the God that you and I worship is a God of ordinary things. It's not because of what God does through it, the ordinary becomes sacred. When we were at home this time, my nephew, we had a small conversation, especially when I'm a pastor and they know I'm a pastor and when we are in a family gathering. Oftentimes our conversations will become theological. They will become theological, and one of them asked me a question. Uncle, what do you think of wearing your shoes and going to the altar? That was the question that they asked. Can we wear shoes to go to the altar? And I said to them, it's not so much that the altar is holy, because God dwells in that place. That becomes holy. My professor for preaching, she says this very clearly. She looks at the Bible and she's holy about the Bible. Get this from me. She says there's nothing holy about this Bible, but this Bible is holy because it talks about a holy God. Am I making sense? There is nothing holy about the Bible, but it talks about a holy God. The Bible becomes holy. This place becomes holy because God dwells in this place. Nothing makes it holy because God dwells in this place. As I read through the story of Jacob, an ordinary place of lust, because God comes to dwell in that place, it becomes Bethel. An ordinary stone before that night was just lying on that place, isn't it? But that night, because Jacob put his head and God meets him in that place, an ordinary stone, because God anoints it, becomes holy. An ordinary water, when I pour into this place, becomes holy in baptism. An ordinary act of baptism that I will do. When Satvik is brought this morning in baptism, when I hold him in my hands, when I say that prayer with you, and when I dip my hands into that and I bless him, the ordinary water turns holy because God is in that act. There's nothing interesting about all of these things. Elements like water, an ordinary thing like baptism. So it's not so much about how we do baptism, whether we do it as an infant or as we dunk inside a tank. An ordinary act of baptism this morning becomes extraordinary and sacred because God is in it. So as we bring the Satvik this morning, and remember, it's by faith we bring him to this place. And it is by grace that he is baptized. It's not how we do it, but it's who does this baptism. God is in this place. God will turn everything that's ordinary to something extraordinary. And to that God we commit the rest of what we will do. You bow your heads with me in prayer. God, we thank you that ordinary things, ordinary places, ordinary people like us, oh God, can become extraordinary when you begin to come and dwell in our lives. And God, so we offer this morning, not only Satvik, but all of ourselves, as we come together in baptism. You will take this simple act and you will make it something holy. Because we come to you in faith. To the great God we come at this time. In Jesus' name we pray.
Jesus.